Hi there, Ischa here, and welcome to The Higher Life, where I take concepts that are considered esoteric, spiritual, new age, and psychological, and unpack how you can apply these in your daily life to live in a truly empowered way. And in this episode, I'm going to continue on from the insight that I was unpacking in the last episode, talking about the shift that humanity is going through right now from a progress-orientated way of being in the world, the progress mindset, to a potential mindset, where we will have an opportunity as a collective and also in our personal lives to fulfill our highest potential at this time in history. Now, I always like to add that little caveat at the end of this time in history because, of course, we cannot possibly know what is to come. We know that we have a natural tendency as a species to expand and to evolve and to transform. So it would be almost impossible to know what a human being will look, feel, and live like in 100 years from now. I think it'll be a very exciting time for humanity. But at the moment, we're in a phase of what would be perceived as confusion or a transition or perhaps a no man's land, where all the beliefs that we had for so long that grounded us down and gave us context for our lives are being challenged, and most of them are in the process of dissolving or dying out. Things like religion, the institutions that used to define who we are and what we were capable of, school systems, work systems, economic systems, political systems, all these human systems that have evolved over time to create a kind of container for us to live our lives are really crumbling because they can no longer meet the evolution that is taking place. And that is because, as I discussed in the last lesson, that the evolution that is taking place is actually asking us to turn inwards and to begin what would be called the process of involution. Now, I'm going to make this simple. If you look, as I discussed in the last video, at the normal progression of a human life, we start out as a baby, very youthful, very vulnerable, very naive, very unconditioned, one could say. And we are born into conditioning and into a system that will condition us from the minute we start breathing. And in fact, we're already being conditioned in the wombs of our mothers. And this is something that I've spoken to a lot in previous videos, so I'm not going to get into that today. What I want to really hone in on here is how, as we evolve from being a baby to becoming an elder, we move through a natural breathing process in which we want to expand out into the world, to experiment, to explore, to develop our potential out in the outer reality, in a shared reality with other human beings. And I think we're all very well versed in this kind of way of life, this progress orientated, where we're continually advancing, improving, educating, and progressing our sense of self out in the world. But as we reach a certain point in our life, we kind of exhaust the payoff of doing that. That is, we no longer get the same level of growth, I guess, or reward from expanding out into the world. And there's this natural kind of disharmony that we start to feel in our lives, or disillusionment, often, that mid-age crisis, where what satisfied or what we were seeking out no longer feels worthy of our attention or our energy. And that makes us very uneasy, because what do we do with our self, this self that is a seeker, seeking outwards, seeking to expand and evolve, who's been seeking answers to the meaning and purpose of their lives, or seeking a way to have validity in the world. There's lots of ways that inner seeker seeks out some kind of reward for themselves, or stability, or security, or safety. There are so many different motivations that the seeker can follow through on in their lifetime. But at some point, the seeker becomes exhausted. And I think anyone in middle age who spends a little bit of time in reflection has felt this transition starting to happen, where the things that once excited you no longer do. And the call there, the invitation is then to start to let go of that youthful or that more naive, or let's say more childlike way or adolescent way of being in the world, where it's all about progression. The seeker wants to know, to answer, to solve. It's a very active energy. Now there's another version of the seeker, which I call the creator. And we all love the creator. That is, we put the creator on a pedestal right now, and you can create your life. Being creative is seen as being a very valuable way of using your energy. But I'm going to put it to you that the creator and the seeker are really the same kind of self. They're looking for some kind of fulfillment out in the world, or they want to be recognized or heard, or they want to feel that they can express themselves fully, and that is received in some way. And in the sort of emotional intelligence world that I've been operating in as a coach, we talk a lot about being seen and being heard and being able to have a voice out in the world. But we've also seen with the rise of social media what happens when everybody is pursuing their own creative pathway relentlessly. It has become very noisy. There's a lot of talking. There's a lot of energy being used in order to be seen and to be heard, and very few people are receiving or listening. Or the ones that are probably overwhelmed. There's an imbalance. There's a lot of people talking and perhaps a lot of people just listening. But we haven't found that harmonization in which we can be in the world and fully expressed without needing anyone else to recognize it, or without needing to continually voice that and have it received. It's a very high energy world at the moment. We're burning a lot of our energy and the universal energy trying to be heard and to be seen and to make money. And it's something that just isn't sustainable. And we all know it, but we don't really know what to do about it. I think most people think that the environment is suffering, but there is this kind of powerlessness that seems to fall over us about how can we make the changes that can cool down, soften down, and start to use our energy in a much more respectful way. And this is actually naturally happening out in the collective. This is the natural wisdom of the spiritual intelligence. We breathe out. And at some point we have no oxygen left to breathe out. And the natural call is to breathe in. That evolution and then the involution. And the work that I do at the Higher Life, it's really about guiding people back into the involution, and to understand that involution is the purpose and the highest potential of humanity right now. And practically, what does that mean? It means that we start to direct our focus. The mind is how we focus on a inner contemplation and inner reflection. We start to become slower. We start to think about who is the seeker that is seeking through me? Who is the creator that is wanting to create through me, to use this human physical body to express in this way? And it can be quite uncomfortable, because we can soon discover that the seeker or the creator, even with the most noble intentions, is a needy part of ourself, and it can't be satisfied. The only point of satisfaction comes when the seeker in fact becomes the focus of the exploration. So what do I really mean in a very practical way? I mean that we go about our daily lives as we are now, without thinking that we need to make any big changes, that we trust that what is happening will happen anyway, and we simply need to align with the invitation to pause when we think about using our energy to go out into the world and to manifest and to create and to progress. That we have to start another business, or start another Instagram site, or we have to do that course, or we have to get that promotion. All of these inner drivers, that we have to read another book on the meaning and purpose of life, or we have to understand our mindset in a more sophisticated way. We have to join a mind game coaching group. There are so many ways in which this seeker creator inner self is hooked into the outer world, into this idea that, oh, I just need to progress myself that little bit more. I just need to work a little bit harder on my business. I just need to make more money there. But this busyness, this doing, it's really burning us up and burning us out. So there is the invitation to, in fact, stay in your daily life, but with the caveat that you acknowledge that you have actually done enough and have enough where you are right now. And I'm really speaking to a group within the human collective that is in the middle class whose basic needs have been met. And that way I can sidestep any kind of, I would say, energy draining debates about people who aren't at that level of material comfort. And of course, this wouldn't be the work for them. Of course, if they wanted to, they could. But this work, the involution, the inner reflective contemplative pathway, this invitation is being put really strongly towards the middle class, towards people whose basic needs have been met. And they're simply using their energy right now to up the quality of their personal lifestyle. But as we've seen, that has actually generated a level of reality that we're in right now, or a conditioned world in which, even being middle class, you're still trying to survive. So that lifestyle improvement has simply put you into a new playing field where you're still at the bottom of what you possibly could achieve if you were richer, if you had that promotion or you were actually able to access more resources. And it kind of, you turn a blind eye to the fact that there's a large part of the world that hasn't even got near to the standard of comfort that you're living in right now. So the logical approach would be that if your basic needs have been met, you're living a relatively materially comfortable life, you have the time, the energy to pause and to reconsider how you're using your energy in the world, and to no longer think about progression, advancement, and lifestyle improvement as a genuine goal in your life. You may stop and start to think, who is this inner self, this seeker, this creator that needs more, that feels uneasy, that feels anxious? And I always say to clients and people who work with me, there are two realities. There is the grounded, aligned, well-adjusted reality in which you are living with a complete awareness of your true self and the many selves that manifest through your true self. And there is the anxious reality, the reality that most of us occupy, that is driven by an anxiety and insecurity that the self that you are identifying with is not your true self, and is in fact a conditioned self that cannot and will not ever experience the kind of inner peace and equilibrium that is available, simply because that self is vulnerable to the system. That is, it's a self that's been conditioned to play out in a system, an economic system, a political system in which fairness, equality, and equanimity are not part of the DNA. And we all know this reality very well. We know the inequalities that live in the economic and political systems that we all occupy. So the self that feels comfortable, that environment is familiar to, is by its very nature insecure, and you will experience ongoing underlying anxiety if you live only through this self, even if you're doing well in your life. So what everybody really wants, what the seeker is really looking for, is that return into the natural, authentic, whole self that is just pure equanimity. Not high, not low, not experiencing blissed out states, not manifesting their perfect life, but simply this comfort zone that is the equanimity that we are before we become anything else. It's kind of like the baseline. It's those calm waters that the waves arise out of, that ocean that we all are. And there's constant movement in that ocean, as there is in any ocean. It's not that the ocean is still, but there's an equanimity to it. The waves can rise up and fall away, but the nature, the DNA of the ocean doesn't change. And a human being is like that as well. The seeker has arisen out of that equanimity, out of that true self, to go out and expand and be a human being and have adventures and test itself and experience the full range of emotions that a human being is capable of. That is the purpose of the seeker, to actually give you the drama that you need in your earlier life to actually experience your own humanity. But at some point you've done that, you've achieved that, you've experienced enough, and then it's that involution, that turning back and observing the seeker for who he or she is, or creator for who he or she is, and starting to actually meet that part of yourself and move inwards. So almost moving that seeker back down into its original source, almost dissolving it back into the source and coming and returning home into that state of equilibrium. And if you meet older people or even younger people who are very wise and have aged well, in their earlier years, you'll experience that deep, calm inner peace and wisdom that just is who they are. Even if they're having highs and lows, it's not to say they don't get stressed or angry or experience emotional waves. However, they just present in this way where they've lived a full life. They've integrated the wisdom, and they have a kind of humor and tenderness and gentleness around the firmness that they may have as an elder. And that is the beauty of becoming an elder and of aging in a wise, graceful and refined way. Something that I'm wanting to embrace myself as I turn 50 this year, to really view the next 20 years or whatever years I have left in my life as an involution, as a time to cool down, to become reflective and contemplative, and to let go of the idea that I need to do more, achieve more, act more out in the world. It is such a beautiful, beautiful experience for humanity to be entering into, and it will see our world calm down significantly. What we're witnessing right now is a peak experience of the old way, the progress mindset. It's rising up and it's peaking and showing extreme behaviors, because that is what happens when something is in the beginning of dying out. It no longer can serve its purpose, and it kind of has a panic at the end and just wants to kind of reassert itself before it eventually is forced to let go. And that is where we're at right now. So if you're looking out in the world and you're feeling deep anxiety, this is a reassuring message that this is a natural part of the process, and what is coming is a much calmer, cooler, reflective time in the human experience. And our highest potential will be cultivating this contemplative, compassionate mindset. In the work I do at the Higher Life, I lead you through a course called The Empowered Way. It's a masterclass, and it really sets you up to welcome in this new reality. It really upskills you to be able to cultivate a mindset that will naturally make you very available and agile as this transition happens. So really, to bottom line this and to finish up on the lesson from last week about the progress to potential mindset, is to really get into your head that that earlier phase of humanity and the earlier phase of your own personal life was all about expansion, progression, advancement, going out and improving the quality of your experience in your life and having that big drama so that you could experience the full scope of your humanity, the emotions and everything that comes with it. And then there is a natural turning point that the whole of humanity is now entering into, which asks you to really turn and look inwards and think, what has been driving me all this time? Who is this seeker, this creator that believes that she can go out or he can go out and create a reality that will fulfill her, and is constantly disappointed on one level or another, or maintains a kind of level of underlying anxiety because it just doesn't seem possible? In turning around and meeting this part of you, you're automatically starting the process of dissolving the hold the seeker or the creator has over your energy. And you start to let her relax or him relax, and you no longer feel compelled to constantly voice and express yourself out in the world, or to continually be overwhelmed by the expression of others that you're taking on board. And you become much more aligned and grounded in your own body, with your true nature, and you start to just enjoy being in the life that you're already living with the people you're already relating to in a much softer, gentler and tender way. Now, that's not to say you're not firm with people who don't respect your boundaries, or with people that you don't want to engage with, or with difficult conversations. Of course, you have that skill set. It's just that the way that you relate to yourself is no longer this hyper tense, hyper anxious person that wants to go out and perfect and produce and progress. You've suddenly come back in and you have that ease, that equanimity, that quiet mind that no longer is addicted to worry and thinking. This is such a beautiful journey to enter into, and I really hope that you will join me on this pathway of becoming fully immersed in this process of involution in your own personal life, because then you will be supporting the whole in the best way possible, helping humanity to experience their highest potential as compassionate, caring, tender and dynamic human beings. So if you're curious, check out Higher Life Academy. All the courses are there. And until next time, take care and love life.